Today we're gonna have a Tex-Mex feast of chimichangas, some queso, some guacamole, some of my Mexican fried rice that's not traditional at all. It's got a little spice to it. And first we're gonna start off with some salsa. So the first thing I've done is drop these tomatoes into some boiling water for a couple of minutes, and then I stuck them in ice water. And it just makes them really easy to peel. A lot of people don't care one way or the other, and I love tomatoes. But I don't like the peel in my salsa. I don't like getting chunks of it. So I do this, and it just makes it come right off like silk. It's your preference. Certainly don't have to do it. But I'm gonna use 3 of these because they're small. Normally I would use 2 regular sized tomatoes, and I've got a can of tomatoes and diced green chilies in there, and it's mild. So we're gonna put some jalapeno in it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. The kids are not crazy about it too spicy, except for Briley. She likes it that way.
She sure does. Your salsa's so good.
The salsa's pretty good.
It's real good.
Put a little stuff in it, and it ends up tasting pretty good. And there's nothing wrong with the peel. It's just personal preference. And I know you can see that I've got some cilantro here. Yes, I know a lot of people think it tastes like soap, and I did too the first few times I ate it. But now I can really tell the difference if I don't have it in there. So we do it. I'm gonna take out just a little bit of the tough part of the tomato in the center. Of course, when we get to the couple of months from now, the tomatoes will be fantastic, and we won't have to do this. But I do, some of mine are a little bit tougher in the center, and I'm just taking out if they are, and if they're not, I'm leaving it. Put this in a food processor. It doesn't take any time at all. And I am gonna add a little bit of green onion. I've already got that chopped up. I do that on my prep day after I do all my produce. And we're gonna add a little bit of regular onion. This is a yellow onion, probably about half of one. I'm just gonna tear that cilantro and put some in it. A lot of people like fresh garlic in their salsa, and I like it. But if you have leftovers the next day, it's so pungent that that's all you can taste. So I use garlic powder. That's probably close to a teaspoon, and I've got maybe a little scant quarter teaspoon of chili powder, and then some cumin, because I like the flavor of that in my salsa. Add a little bit of jalapeno. And I've already cut it up, but I am gonna take some of the seeds and membranes out because that's where all that heat is. But I am gonna leave one just the way it is. Just cut it a little bit. Be sure when you're working with these things that when you're done, you don't forget to wash your hands before you touch something you really care about. And we're gonna add just a little bit of salt, not much. And a little pepper. You can process this a lot and get it just as tiny as you want it. Some of my family likes it that way. I like mine a little bit chunky. And it's done. All right, now we're gonna add some lime. I'm gonna use a whole one because it's kind of small. Sometimes if I have a bigger one, I'll just use a half. But you gotta have that lime flavor. You could use lemon, but the lime makes a difference. Okay. Then we're just gonna put this in a bowl and refrigerate it until we're ready. And we'll move on in a minute. Look at that.
Look at that.
Isn't that pretty? It tastes so good. When I get done with it, it reminds me a little bit of El Phoenix, which was my favorite growing up. They've changed it now. But when I was a kid, it was more like this. Isn't that good?
All right.
We'll be back in a few minutes, and we're gonna make some Mexican fried rice. And if my avocados are okay, we're gonna make some good guacamole. My avocados are not real big, and I don't have a lot of them. This will be gone tonight, so I am gonna use fresh garlic in it. Sometimes I use the powder if I'm making enough of it that I know I'm gonna have leftovers. And we're gonna put a little onion and a little bit of green onion and some cilantro and just a tiny little bit of cumin. And I am gonna use a little piece of some jalapeno. The only one that will eat it will be Briley. The baby will get a little bit of avocado. It's not doing that. She'll get a little bit just by itself.
It's avocado,
Yes,
Granny.
we call it avocado. She's tried guacamole a couple of times and it wasn't her favorite thing. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is add our lime. This is a larger lime than I had before, so I'm having to use my lemon squeezer. I no longer have the strength to do those things by hand. We're gonna add just a little bit of onion. Can they see?
Yeah.
All right. Not too much, but we are gonna have some. And I try to cut it up real little for the guacamole.
Those avocados are pretty.
All right, I am gonna cut up this little piece of jalapeno that's left. I'm trying to get it little. My knife needs sharpening. That's something I need to do. Just get that knife sharp. And do the same thing with the garlic. That fresh garlic is good in it, but it's not so great the next day. It just, to me, it overpowers it.
You don't want to use it.
I use it when I know that we're gonna eat the guacamole tonight. There won't be any of that left. If I was making a big bunch of it, it would be different. But there's nothing like the fresh thing in there. You just can't do it if you're making a bunch and you want to eat it the next day. Because I promise that's all you taste, is raw garlic the next day.
Is that all?
All right, now we're gonna cut up a little bit of this cilantro once again. See if I can get more of the leaves. Do you eat cilantro, Ashlyn? I don't even know.
I love cilantro.
I do.
You do.
Hi, Briley.
Okay.
Pretty soon it'll be
We've got
you
our
on record.
lime. Getting it all over me. We've got our lime and our onion.
You're such a good cook.
And we're going to put just a little salt because it's not any good without salt. And a little bit of regular pepper. And I am going to put just the tiniest little bit, tiny little bit of cumin in there. Sometimes if I don't have a jalapeno, I'll put cayenne pepper or Tabasco or something like that. Now I'm kind of different than some people about it. I do not mash this up to death. Actually, I like to take my knife and just kind of get through it a little bit. And then I take my fork and just blend it in. I'm also kind of different than a lot of people. I do not like tomatoes in my guacamole. I think they water it down and just kind of give it a brown, discolored look very quickly. Even though you've put in the acid of the lime juice, sometimes the tomato just changes everything. So I don't do it. I'm gonna leave it like that. Throw one of these in there because everybody says do it. And we'll be back in a few minutes. Back, and we're gonna make some non-traditional Tex-Mex rice. It's completely different. It's got some spice to it. It really is very good, but it's not what you see on your plate when you go to a Mexican restaurant. I'm gonna start off with some carrots. If I had some frozen peas, I really would throw those in some onion. I'm saving some of this for my meat. And in a little bit, we'll add a little bit of garlic. And I'm just gonna kind of get this going. There's a little bit of vegetable oil on the bottom of the pan, just enough to coat it. And I am gonna add a little bit of salt. And as soon as those get a little bit tender, we're gonna add the rice and the garlic. And we'll be back in just a minute. We're back. Our onions are nice and soft. The carrots are soft enough now that we can add our rice. This is just a cup and a half of regular white raw rice. Not minute rice, just the regular raw rice. And we're gonna toast that for just a second. And then we're gonna add our garlic and our spices. I told you this wasn't real traditional, not in any way, but it really has a good flavor. And I use this a lot as a base in my casseroles. When I make a Mexican casserole, I use this rice. We're just about there. I'm just trying to get a little tiny fry going on that rice. And now we're gonna add our garlic. That's probably about a half a tablespoon. And I'm gonna add some spice. I use a little chili powder and a little cumin. I probably won't use quite what all's on this plate, but I might. And that just gives it a really good flavor, and it makes the color pretty too. And all I'm gonna do is turn this around in the pan a little bit. Keep it from burning, but I wanna get that spice nice and toasty. Now we're gonna add some chicken broth. 1.5 cups of rice, and I've got just a hair over 3 cups. And that's because I've got the veggies in there. Main thing is I want to make sure that it covers the top. And it does. As soon as this comes back to the boil, we're going to cover it, time it about 20 minutes, and we're done with the rice. We're back and our rice is ready. It's been 20 minutes. And when I take off the lid, there's no liquid and there's some little holes here and there. And that tells you that it's done. And when I move the fork around it, it just doesn't stick together. It's perfect. So we're gonna turn this off, set it aside, and go right into this queso. I have just a little bit of butter in my pan. I'm gonna put this pan on medium heat. We're gonna melt the butter. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of chopped jalapeno and a little bit of green onion, just for color, and then a tiny little bit of white onion. And all I'm gonna do is saute this until it's tender. We're just about there. And I'm gonna add some diced tomatoes and green chilies. And just a pinch of chili powder and cumin. I mean a pinch. You don't want a heavy flavor, but it gives just a little bit of something that makes it taste extra good. We're gonna go ahead and add a little bit of milk. And I'm gonna bring that up to a boil. I like to add white American when I can get it. But today I've got some just regular American slices, not the singles that are individually wrapped, but the good stuff. And we're gonna add some pasteurized processed cheese product. I happen to have 2% here. I can't tell any difference in the flavor after using it for years, but if you like the real McCoy, use it. Once this gets melted, I may have to add a little bit more of the milk. I started off, I've got a cup over there in that measure, and I put about a quarter cup in here when I put in the tomatoes. But I may or may not have to add more. And once this is completely melted, and I'm turning my fire down now to medium low, and once it's completely melted, I'm gonna add a little bit more milk, cool down that pan, get it off the fire, and add some really good sharp cheddar. We are just about ready to put in our sharp cheddar cheese. And I learned a long time ago to do this off the heat. It just turns into strings and blobs if it's too hot. So I actually not just turn off the heat, but I move it and I stir it a little bit, cool it off, and I add just a touch more milk to help cool it off. See how creamy and pretty that is? We want it to look like that when we're done. We don't want a bunch of strings, and that's the problem. A lot of people don't tell you with cheddar cheese. You've got to add it off the heat, or it just turns into a mess. I just let it sit like this for just a little bit until I feel comfortable that it's not going to turn into a bunch of strings. And we're still off heat. And I blend it as well as I can, and I can tell by feeling of it whether or not I need to add a little bit more milk. I always start off with a cup. I never use it. But we are going to add a little bit more. The jalapenos and the onion really gives this queso a good flavor. Isn't that pretty? When we come back in a few minutes, I'm going to put this back on the back burner, and I'm not going to turn it on yet, but I will warm it back up. But when we come back, I'm going to have some taco meat made and some beans warmed up, and we're going to make some chimichangas. Made some taco meat. I didn't use an envelope. I just used my own seasonings, some chili powder, cumin, onion, garlic. I put a little bit of sugar in there and some water, and I've warmed these tortillas. And all we're gonna do now, I've got the little kids already made. They don't want the meat in them. So these are just bean and cheese. And then the rest of them are gonna have some bean, meat, and cheese. And all we do is just put a little small layer of the beans on the bottom, mostly just to hold the meat in place. These are gonna be really good. We're gonna fry them up. They're gonna be great. And all we do now, we've got all that in the center. We fold in the sides good. Bring the bottom of it up all the way to the top and kind of drag it back and hang on to it as we roll it up. That's it. So simple. Secure it with a toothpick. I've got my oil on I'm trying to get it up to about 350. I don't want it any higher than that until I see what it's doing. It's almost ready. We're gonna fry up these chimichangas. Everything inside, of course, is already done. I'm gonna make these little kid ones first. And we're just gonna get some good brown color on those, crisp them up a little bit. We're gonna make a pretty plate. And everybody around here is hollering they're starving, so they'll be very happy. We're getting really close on these. The hardest thing about a chimichanga is getting the blooming thing to stay when you turn it over when it's just the right color that you want. They don't want to do that. So you just have to keep moving them. Technically they're done. I'm just trying to get a little bit more color. Our meal is done. We have our fried chimichangas with a delicious taco meat, beans and cheese, our wonderful queso on top, our rice, which is a little spicy, guacamole, and salsa. It's a lot of work to put together a meal that you do everything from scratch pretty much, but it's well worth it when your family loves it. I hope y'all enjoy the videos, and if you're interested in the recipes, let me know. Y'all have a great night.